Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Ohio Has Issues. I'm Stephanie Haney.
I am Mike Polk, and we have some news for you folks. If you are somebody who lives in Ohio, who had the desire to vote for your Democratic candidate, I think you're going to get your chance.
That's right. It is going to happen.
As you know, Joe Biden was having a little hard time getting on the Ohio ticket, but it seems as though that is going to be resolved very soon. We have the solution about in place, but there's so much more to this.
Yeah.
There's a lot of, how do we get here? How did this happen? And where is this going moving forward? Because this is still not completely over. All we know for sure is that there is a fix, and Joe Biden will now be on the Ohio ballot, but we don't know everything, and we're going to talk to some people who are going to tell us what we do know so far.
Right, and it's not coming from the state of Ohio, by the way. This fix is coming from the national level, from the Democratic National Committee, so we're going to get into all of that. And also what's going on with this Ohio General Assembly special session that's still going on right now.
Summoned by Governor DeWine to solve this very problem that has been solved, and yet they are still working in there.
There's some more to that, so we'll get into that. And also, in that regard, we'll be talking about kind of the major hang-up, or one major hang-up that's existed between the Republicans and the Democrats here in Ohio that kind of made Ohio not able to fix this. So that's all to come.
Okay, but first, we're going to give you a quick update on the Senate. As you know, you are part of the most important Senate race, one of the most important Senate races in the country this year, could decide the balance of the Senate itself. And so we try and give you a little update on what the candidates are up to each week. This week, not a lot, but I will point out one thing that I thought was interesting from each of them. Both of them, Senate candidates, intentionally linked themselves to former President Donald Trump this week.
Both
Can you
Bernie
believe
Moreno,
it? Yes.
the Republican candidate,
Yes.
and Sherrod Brown, the sitting senator who is a Democrat, both of them linked themselves to former President Trump.
Intentionally. They did it intentionally. They did it. Now, that might not surprise you with Bernie Moreno because he is the endorsed candidate by Trump. Many people would say probably that he is the candidate because the former president endorsed him. I would assume the former president would be one of those people who would remind him of that, and probably does regularly, if I had to guess. But so it makes sense that he would be obviously like associating himself with Donald Trump, but he was just showing him a little bit of support. Do we have the tweet, I believe?
How did he do that?
He said, this is just for his court appearance. He doesn't like what's going on in there. He says they wouldn't even allow this in the third world South American banana republic. So as a lot of people have been doing, as a lot of his acolytes have been doing, he is just showing them that he cares and showing them that he thinks this is nonsense. He's just supporting his president there.
He is talking about the criminal trial right now that the former president is embroiled in.
Yes, the current one.
The hush money criminal trial.
The hush money criminal trial.
Okay, just to be clear what we're talking about here.
That's what he was talking about there. I should have been clear. Yeah, so anyways, but no surprise there. Now, what might surprise you, though, is that Sherrod Brown is actually also linking himself with Trump this week. Go ahead and let's see this. This is actually from reporting from our good friend Henry Gomez at NBC News. He reports that a new ad in Ohio's slugfest of a Senate race draws a positive link between vulnerable Democratic incumbent Sherrod Brown and former President Donald Trump, whose past electoral victories here reinforce the state's heavy Republican lean. So here's what he said in the ad itself. He wrote a bill that Donald Trump signed to crack down on drugs at the border. So he essentially says, I wrote this bill and Donald Trump signed it, and goes on to say that he works across the aisle. And the reason, now why would he be doing this? Well, obviously he's trying to appeal to that Trump voter.
Sounds like he's doing more of trying to appeal across the aisle.
It does seem like that. And if you look at the numbers, it really makes sense. So he is now run in several Senate races. In 2006, he won against former Governor DeWine. And in that race, he won 56-43. So pretty lopsided victory there. These are average percentages. In 2012, he was up against Josh Mandel, and he won 50-44, a little tighter there.
Okay.
2012, though, in 2018, that was his last race. That was him running against Jim Renacci, and that was 53-46. So it's now here's the important thing, though. Only one of those was a presidential election. It was 2012.
Okay.
And in that race, Obama beat Mitt Romney 51-47. So in that race, he sort of had that to ride, a little bit. He has not been on the ticket with Donald Trump. In 2016, Trump won here in Ohio 52 to 43 definitively.
Right.
And in 2020, 53 to 45. So pretty definitive again there. So it looks, if you just look at that mathematically, it's almost impossible for him to win if he can't appeal to at least some of those Trump voters. And we know that those voters exist, the people who might vote, who don't always vote exactly the way that you might think.
If those numbers hold. Of
If
course,
those
we have
numbers
no
hold.
idea what the percentages are going to be here in the state of Ohio. We do know that historically Ohio has been leaning more red, but we have
Yes.
no idea what the percentages will be in this upcoming election.
Absolutely right. But all that to be said, all that's to say that he's obviously making this appeal because he sees the writing on the wall, and that's that he has to appeal to that at least some of that base in order to try and hang on to that seat.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
interesting. I learned something new today.
Okay, well there you go. Well, what are we gonna teach him next?
Okay, so let's get into our main topic for the day, which is what's happening with President Joe Biden and getting on the Ohio ballot. And we're going to start with some background here because we wonder, why is this even an issue? I was just having a conversation with someone this week who couldn't really even understand why this is happening. So
We've
here's
been
some
reading
of the
about it
background.
for like 2 weeks, and we still don't completely understand why this is happening, but here's what we do know.
Here's what we do know. Yeah. In 2010, Ohio passed a law. This was actually kind of an add-on to something else that was already happening, but in any event, it became law in 2010 that a candidate in Ohio has to be certified 90 days before the upcoming election.
So this is a relatively recent problem we've created for ourselves.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. So it happened in 2010. Now, that moved up the deadline to what this year would be August 7th. Okay. So far, no problem. However, the Democratic National Convention doesn't even start until August 19th, which is after August 7th.
Right.
And the convention is where President Joe Biden would be officially nominated, and then that would go to the states for certification to get on their ballots. So there was a question about how the president would be certified in time to get on Ohio's November ballot. Well, Governor Mike DeWine wanted the Ohio legislature to fix this.
Last week he came out and kind of gave him the smackdown and said,
he did.
you guys get it together. I don't know why he just learned of this issue, apparently, but he found out about it. Somebody told him, and he came out pretty teed off and said, fix the problem. And he called a special session. They weren't even supposed to come to work that day. He called a special session for them to come in and fix this very problem.
Yeah, they got called in on their PTO. You know how mad that makes everybody. DeWine actually used the words absurd and ridiculous to describe the situation where the legislature has not passed a fix to get Biden on the ballot in Ohio, which, by the way, they have done in previous years because
Yes.
it's been a problem before.
Twice before, and in those cases, though, it was both parties that had that issue. So they found a consensus and solved the problem. In this case, they're not as motivated to, because it's just the Democrats who are up against the wall.
Okay, so I want to tell you a little bit more background about a special session of Ohio's General Assembly, so let's play that now. There are questions about what an Ohio General Assembly special session can accomplish when it comes to getting President Joe Biden on Ohio's ballot. To verify, we checked with the governor's office, the Ohio Legislative Service Commission, and the Democratic National Committee. First, here's what Governor DeWine said about calling this session.
This is called in the statute an extraordinary action, an extraordinary situation. This is an extraordinary situation.
The Ohio Legislative Service Commission research shows that a special session of the Ohio General Assembly has only been called 27 times in the last 89 years, and the last time was in 2004. So we can verify, yes, calling a special session of the General Assembly is, quote, an extraordinary situation in Ohio. Next, there's a question about whether this special session is guaranteed to ensure Biden is on Ohio's ballot in November. The Ohio Legislative Service Commission research shows that the last 6 special sessions did not result in a law being passed. So no, this special session is not guaranteed to fix the issue. Despite all this, leaders from both parties are saying Joe Biden will be on the ballot in Ohio. Here's the latest from DNC Chair Jamie Harrison. Quote, through a virtual roll call, we will ensure that Republicans can't chip away at our democracy through incompetence or partisan tricks, and that Ohioans can exercise their right to vote for the presidential candidate of their choice. so we can verify whether it happens through legislative action in a special session or because the DNC nominates the president before Ohio's current August 7th deadline. As of now, Joe Biden will be on the ballot in Ohio.
Now, here's what Governor DeWine said after the DNC announced it was going to nominate Biden early to meet the Ohio August 7th deadline. Quote, while I understand the Democratic National Committee has just today proposed a workaround to help get President Biden on the Ohio ballot, it is prudent legislation be passed to get this done. It is yeah, good. And as I previously said, we do not want to leave something so basic as having the sitting president of the United States on the ballot to others when this can and should be done legislatively. It's the right thing to do.
So that was his comment about that. And the special session, by the way, even though the Democratic National Committee has made this fix, they say this is going to happen, the special session is continuing for multiple reasons. We'll get more into that in a little bit. But let's kind of explain right now what the Democratic National Committee is going to do in order to fix this problem. So they've done what they're going to do before. They're going to hold a virtual roll call. Mm-hmm. They did this before in 2020 when so many things were happening virtually. So we are now in a situation where they will be taking on pandemic proceedings in order to make this happen. And
so
it'll be a lot like that process.
If that was the workaround, why wouldn't they have done that from the beginning? They just assumed that we would be able to fix it ourselves, I take it?
I think that they were operating under the assumption that what happened in the previous two scenarios when this happened would happen again.
Okay. Well,
however,
it did not.
That is not what happened.
Okay.
That is not what happened. So here's how this virtual roll call process will work. This is from the Democratic National Committee. So the Rules and Bylaws Committee will vote. That'll happen on Tuesday, June 4th, and that will be a resolution to allow for the virtual party proceedings. So this would be a change to how the call would have been done in person at the convention. Then, in the weeks that follow, the resolution will be voted on by the entire Democratic National Committee membership. And then once that resolution is adopted, this is step 3 in the process, the remainder of the pre-nomination process will follow just the standard order of operations. So they've done it before, and they're going to do it again. And they came out with a pretty biting statement.
Oh, this is from the DNC. Yes, I'm sorry. So this is the DNC's response. In spite of Republicans' bad faith efforts to stand in the way, the in-person convention in Chicago will continue to serve as an important convening event for Democrats across the country. They're essentially saying, hey, just because we're meeting online doesn't mean we're not going to party in person.
Right, they are. You know, I do have to think, though, that it does kind of take a little bit of wind out of the sails of the convention. You know, he'll already have been nominated, then be able to be certified in all these other places.
That's true, but maybe if it were some young up-and-coming candidate who we haven't met yet, but he is already the president. We've met the man. He's been here quite some time. So I think it's probably is more of just a formality in this case than it would be if it were somebody who wasn't currently in the office. But I agree, it is fun, and it'll make the balloon drop just a little less special.
There'll still be pomp and circumstance, though. So I think it's really important to note that this fix came from the Democratic National Committee, because a lot of people were calling on the Ohio Democratic Party to make this fix. But this fix wasn't under the authority of the Ohio Democratic Party. It's not something that they could do. They can't control if the Democratic National Committee is willing to call a virtual roll in order to get the certification in time.
Nor could they operate on their own to fix this within the Ohio legislature, because they are pretty powerfully outnumbered.
Right.
So they kind of just were stuck there.
Yeah. Really, here in the state of Ohio. So the Ohio Democratic Party is currently led by Chair Elizabeth Liz Walters. She goes by Liz. And fun fact about her, she was elected unanimously in 2021 by the party, first female elected to chair the Ohio Democratic Party.
Nice, cool. Well, I had a nice chance to chat with her and find out what she was thinking about all of this. Take a look. Well, we have some exciting news. We have Ohio Democratic Party Chair Elizabeth Walters with us. First of all, thank you for joining us, Madam Chair.
Thanks for having us.
From what I hear, we've got good news. It turns out that the Democratic presidential nominee is going to be on the Ohio ballot, it looks like. Aren't you excited?
Crazy concept that voters should have a choice in November, but we're excited that, the DNC has solved the problem. We're done waiting for Ohio Republicans to fix it. So we are ready to move forward and head towards the general election.
Can you tell me how we got here very briefly? How did we drop the ball on this so that this happened again?
Yeah, so listen, national parties have always scheduled their conventions at some point in the fall, and over the last decade, across the country, states have moved deadlines or made exceptions in order to accommodate those national conventions. You know, it's really hard to find a city that has the exact set of dates for the exact thousands of people that need to come together. And in the past decade, Ohio Republicans have made changes to accommodate other conventions. And this time around, because it only applied to Democrats, they chose not to act over the last 4 months. So we didn't want to wait. We didn't want to leave this up to them. So we are going to move forward with an internal party fix and make sure that Ohioans have a choice and that we protect our democracy this fall.
Can you tell us what you consider to be some of the problems with the fixes that were proposed by the Republican legislature?
Well, right now we don't have a single fix, and that is part of the problem. There is no single bill that both the Republican leader in the House and the Republican leader in the Senate can agree on. We've had many different versions of many different bills, and so we've advocated from the beginning that we need a clean fix to just put President Biden on the ballot, and that is what we should focus on, and that's just not been the case. So anything that Republicans do that isn't a clean fix is purely a cynical partisan attack on Ohioans' ability to express their vote and hold their government accountable. And we're not going to participate in any of that stuff. So that's why the DNC is stepping in to solve the problem, and we're going to move forward.
Can you tell us about some of the stipulations that the legislature was trying to attach to, including Joe Biden on the ballot?
Yeah. So listen, I started telling you every single thing, we'd be here all day. I think there's been something like 8 different pieces of legislation. But the big claim that Ohio Republicans are making is that we need to ban foreign money in ballot elections here in Ohio. But here's the thing, it's already illegal, right? It is illegal under federal statute for foreign donors to give in state, local, and national elections. It's also illegal under Ohio Election Commission guidelines. And really what they're trying to do is put in a whole bunch of rules that are going to make it difficult for Ohio citizens to hold their government accountable through the ballot measure process. And as we all saw last year, Ohioans care deeply about protecting that right. In August, we protected our Constitution. In November, we enshrined abortion access here in Ohio. That was all done through citizen-led ballot measure work, right? Democrats, independents, Republicans all came together in coalition to express their voice to their state government. And at the end of the day, the only thing the GOP is trying to do is make that harder for citizens. And that is what we just will not participate in. So we're going to focus on moving forward with nominating President Biden through our own process and make sure that Ohioans have a fair and free election this November.
Last week, Governor DeWine suddenly decided that he was going to try and fix this. And I am just curious about the timing of that and what you consider to be the meaning behind the timing of that. This is something that's been a problem for a while. Why last week did he do this?
That's a great question. And I would be interested to understand the governor's timing, because again, Republicans hold a supermajority in both chambers. They have been able to fix this for months and have chosen not to do so. And so that is why the DNC has fixed the problem. The Biden ballot excess issue is gone. So there is no longer a need for special session. And frankly, the party of the $60 million first energy bribery scheme being the ones who are going to have a special session to clean up campaign finance law in Ohio is a total joke. The Ohio Democrats have introduced the Ohio Anti-Corruption Act for the last 2 sessions, and we would love to work with Republicans to pass that and really clean up Ohio campaign finance once and for all.
Chair Walters, thank you for the clarification and congratulations on getting your preferred candidate on the Ohio ballot.
Thank you so much, Mike. Appreciate it.
Bye now. Very cool of Chair Walters to give us her time. Just to sum that up for everybody, we heard that they wanted to make some kind of a trade, essentially. The Republicans wanted to make some kind of a trade to solve this problem. They weren't willing to vote to make sure that Biden was on the ballot unless they were going to get something that they wanted as well. And then the Democrats swooped in, the National Democratic Party swoops in, and they spoiled all the fun, didn't they? Or
Well,
did they?
They did spoil the Republicans' fun. So let's get into a little bit of what it was that the Ohio Republicans wanted. We have NBC Cleveland investigative reporter Lena Lai to give us a little preview of what that was.
I have an obligation to take this action.
As ordered by Governor Mike DeWine last Thursday, lawmakers went back to work to try to come up with a legislative fix to put President Biden on the ballot.
Somebody can't follow directions.
But the negotiations were both dramatic and tense as Republicans wanted to tack other things onto the bill.
Just pass a clean bill. and put Biden on the ballot.
Senate Republicans passed a bill putting President Biden on the ballot, but also added a ban on foreign money in state elections, which is already illegal under federal law. However, Democrats don't like the fine print in the bill, which gives the Republican Attorney General the power to review ballot issues.
To put the power in the hands of the Attorney General in this state at this moment is highly questionable.
If we all agree that foreign election interference and foreign contributions into our elections are a problem, then why would somebody vote no on this bill?
So when you say banning foreign money in elections, generally speaking, that sounds like a good idea, right?
Right, sounds good.
But Lena mentioned the fine print there, and that is something that I was really interested in getting to the bottom of. What exactly does that mean? You know, what are they proposing? There were a bunch of different things floating around, as Chair Walters said.
Because there could have just been the clean solution, and there was one of those offered, but they weren't interested in taking that up. They wanted some goodies.
Right. So we elicited the assistance of Case Western Reserve University School of Law professor Jonathan Enton to really kind of walk us through exactly what was proposed in this proposed ban on foreign contributions to ballot issues. So here's that. Professor Enton from Case Western Reserve University School of Law, thank you very much for being with us here on Ohio Has Issues.
Thanks for having me.
Now, it has been a quick-moving week when it comes to what's happening with our Ohio legislature and the issue of getting President Joe Biden on the ballot. The Ohio legislature is still in the middle of a special session right now that was called by Governor Mike DeWine. Of course, we know now the Democratic National Committee is going to do what it needs to do to make sure that Biden is certified on the ballot. But there's still something else going on in the special session. So what can you tell me about the additional provision not related to Joe Biden getting on the ballot that's being worked on?
Well, the main provision would prohibit foreign nationals from contributing to campaigns relating to ballot issues. Now, Ohio law already prohibits foreign nationals from contributing to candidate campaigns. There is an opinion from the Ohio Election Commission saying that Ohio law should be read to prohibit foreign nationals from contributing to ballot campaigns. But majority Republicans in both houses of the legislature have said they want to make absolutely sure that that's true. So they want to adopt a bill that would explicitly prohibit foreign nationals from contributing to ballot issue campaigns. Now, the Democrats in the legislature say that they agree that foreign nationals shouldn't be contributing, but they are uncomfortable with this bill for basically three reasons. The first is a political objection. That is, Democrats say that this is a way for Republicans to try to get revenge because they lost in 2023 on a couple of major ballot issues. One that would have raised the required majority to approve constitutional amendments, and another one that enshrined reproductive rights in the Ohio Constitution. But beyond that, the Democrats are saying that this bill contains some objectionable provisions. For example, they say that the bill would also treat any organization that sponsors a ballot issue as a political action committee, and they say that this would impose burdensome requirements on citizen groups that are trying to promote initiatives, whether statutes or constitutional amendments. And they say that the bill would give the Attorney General the power to enforce all of those restrictions. And they say that would give the Attorney General too much power because, in general, the Attorney General does not prosecute crimes in Ohio. That's handled by county prosecutors, and the opponents of that provision say we shouldn't be giving the Attorney General that much power when it could be exercised by the county prosecutor.
Okay. I'm interested in that middle point that you mentioned, requiring citizen groups that are trying to get initiatives onto a ballot to register as political action committees. Can you tell me any more about that, practically what that would require?
It would require first that they actually register with the state, but it also would require that these sponsoring organizations submit detailed reports about who's contributing to their campaign, how much they're contributing, and they'd have to make these reports periodically through the year. Now, the critics will say this imposes real burdens on citizen groups that aren't really organized the way, say, a traditional sort of political action committee that may reflect the interests of, say, some organized group or business or industry or what have you. And so the critics are saying that this will make it more difficult for citizen groups to try to put measures on the ballot for the voters to consider. Now, I can't speak directly for what the sponsors of this bill would say, but I think they would say something along the lines of, if we are going to have anybody trying to change Ohio law or the Ohio Constitution, the people have a right to know who's behind this effort. And one way to get information of that sort is to require the sponsors to provide information about who's funding them and how much they're getting from the people who contribute. A lot of this debate is tied up with the low level of trust in the General Assembly right now. I mean, we can see that with the difficulty that the legislature has had in changing the deadline for getting President Biden onto the ballot. But it's not just that. You go back to what happened last year. And what happened last year was that the legislature, having first said that it didn't want to have elections in August because that's a bad time of year, you get low turnout, things like that. The majority in the legislature decided to put on the ballot in August of 2023 a proposed constitutional amendment that would change or raise the required majority for amending the state constitution from a simple majority to 60%. And it was pretty clearly aimed at making it more difficult for that reproductive rights amendment that was going to be on the November ballot last year to pass. But it's not just that. You go back to the year before, where we had the big battles about redistricting. 5 times the Ohio Supreme Court said that the proposed legislative maps violated the state constitution, and 5 times the redistricting commission stuck to its guns and came up with district maps that didn't satisfy the anti-gerrymandering rules in the Constitution. Now, the Supreme Court decisions were divided. They were all 4-3 rulings. They were almost all party line votes, with the exception of the Chief Justice O'Connor, who retired at the end of 2022. Now, who's right is a separate point. All I'm saying is that because we had really strong partisan splits on issues that mattered to both sides, you don't have a lot of trust in the General Assembly. And so it's hard to work out deals. If you add to that the Republicans in the legislature have really bitter divisions of their own. For example, the current House Speaker was elected to that position with only a minority of the Republican caucus supporting him, right? And we know that the current Senate president, who can't stay in the Senate because of term limits, will be next year in the House. He's running for the House. He's unopposed on the November ballot, so he's clearly going to win. And it's widely expected, and he has even hinted that he will challenge the House Speaker next year to be the Speaker. So between the distrust between the parties and the internal divisions among the Republicans, it's really hard to get people to believe that everyone's acting in good faith. So the critics of the bill to ban foreign nationals from contributing to ballot issue campaigns basically are saying, look, it would be perfectly simple to change one section of existing law to say that foreign nationals can't contribute directly or indirectly, not only to candidate campaigns, but also to ballot issue campaigns. So that's not what this bill does. It's more elaborate than that. And so on one side, the supporters of this bill are suggesting, well, this is just a way to provide for greater transparency in ballot issue campaigns. And on the other side, you have people saying, look, if all you want to do is eliminate foreign nationals from contributing to ballot issue campaigns, make a simple change to the law and don't add all of this baggage. And that's why we have such bitter debates down there. Now, if the Republicans can't agree among themselves what to do, they have the votes in both houses to push through this bill, but it's not clear that they're all on the same page. And so we're in this special session, and it's entirely possible that nothing will pass. It's not crucial right now to change the certification deadline for President Biden, because it looks like the Democratic National Committee is going to work out a way to come up with a workaround, right? So that may take some of the momentum out from making that fix. And the internal divisions among the Republicans about foreign national contributions to ballot issue campaigns may fall by the wayside as well. We'll see, because whatever is going to happen in the special sessions is going to happen this week. Now, if nothing happens in the special session, it is still possible that the General Assembly could pass something in the normal course of its work before the end of the year that would permanently change the ballot deadline for presidential candidates. After all, this isn't a new problem. This is the fourth presidential election since we went to the 90-day deadline, and it's the third time that we had a problem. In 2012 and 2020, both conventions happened after the Ohio deadline, so the legislature came up with a temporary fix. This year, it's only one convention, and the legislature has had trouble making what should be a simple fix, what was a simple fix in other states that had a problem like that this year. So the legislature really ought to try to come up with a more realistic deadline so that they're not constantly having to put out this kind of supposedly one-off fire, but it turns out that the one-off fire seems to be happening almost every time. Right? And by the same token, the legislature isn't under any imminent pressure to deal with the question of foreign national contributions to ballot issue campaigns. Maybe the legislature will pass something right now, but if it doesn't, it still has the rest of this year to deal with that question as well. Now, there may be some urgency feeling among the supporters of prohibitions on foreign national campaigns to foreign national contributions to ballot issue campaigns, because there will be at least one and maybe more ballot initiatives on the November in the November election. We're going to have a proposal to create an independent redistricting commission to try to deal more effectively with the problem of gerrymandering that we've struggled with recently. And there is apparently an effort to get an amendment onto the ballot that would raise the minimum wage in Ohio. And so that may be a reason why people looking to tighten up the rules relating to ballot initiatives would want to do something sooner rather than later. But whether they do something this year or not, even if they don't do anything this year, we're going to have efforts to put ballot issues out there into the indefinite future. And so even if you don't make changes that will be effective for 2024, there are going to be ballot initiatives in 2026 and 2028 and maybe in 2025 and 2027. So again, different people will have different views about how urgent it is to act now. But I think that if nothing happens this year, we're going to see these issues or these questions coming up in the legislature again before very long.
All right, Professor Entin, thank you very much for that very thorough breakdown. That really paints a very clear picture and answers the questions that I had. So we appreciate your time. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having me. Take care.
So as we mentioned, Governor Mike DeWine did call for the special session to continue even after the Democratic National Committee fixed the Biden on the ballot issue. And here's what he said regarding that, referring to this proposal to ban foreign contributions on ballot issues. He said, quote, "I have been taken aback by how many officials and special interest groups have come out against efforts to ban potential foreign support for ballot initiatives."
He went on to say, a reasonable person would conclude from these statements that there are individuals who likely intend to put foreign money into ballot measures this fall, and that groups promoting these initiatives might be relying on such support from foreign sources. And a foreign contribution ban is needed in Ohio right away to protect the integrity of the Ohio Constitution, our November election, and all future elections. It's the right thing to do.
I don't know if I just have PTSD from law school, but anytime I hear what a reasonable person would do, it makes me want to jump out of a window because it's very so subjective.
It is.
They call it an objective standard, but it is not. I have news for you, law school professors. Now you, Professor Entin, I'm sure that you're very reasonable with your exams.
Yeah, and fashionable.
And
I
fashionable.
Quite fashionable.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where these things stand. I did also think it was interesting that Governor Mike DeWine is very adamant about what is the right thing to do. He mentioned that multiple times in his statement. But again, you know, we do need to point out that's subjective. You cannot objectively say what is the right thing to do.
That's true. You can't.
And that's that.
I think we settled it.
I think we said it. All right. Well, that is this week's edition of Ohio Has Issues. So if you took nothing away from this, know that President Joe Biden will be on the ballot in Ohio. If you want to vote for him, you'll have that opportunity. And they're still doing some messy things in this special session. Guess we'll see what happens.
They're up to something, folks. We'll keep you updated. See you next week.
Bye.